Alright, in this video I'm going to be going over the 7.1 to 7.3 quiz review. Number 1 says that in a right triangle, theta is the acute angle and sine of theta equals 4 over 9, so that is opposite over hypotenuse. So then I can use the quadratic formula to find, not the quadratic formula, I can use a squared plus b squared equals c squared to find my last side. Remember, c squared, or c is your hypotenuse, and then a and b don't matter. So I have 4 squared plus b squared equals 9 squared. 4 squared is 16. Then if I subtract both sides, I get b squared equals 65, which, if I try to factor it, only turns into, oops, I got that backwards, 5 and 13. So, I am going to leave this as the radical of 65. So, I already know sine. I'm going to need to go find cosecant, which is the reciprocal of sine, so that's going to be 9/4. Then I want to find cosine, which is adjacent over hypotenuse, which is square root of 65 over 9. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine, so I flip that. I have 9 over the square root of 65, but we don't like radicals on the denominator. So I'm going to multiply by the square root of 65 over the square root of 65. This gets me 9 square root of 65 over 65. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So 4 over square root of 65. Again, I don't like that square root of 65 on the denominator. So I multiply by the square root of 65 over the square root of 65. This gets me 4 square root of 65 over 65. And then cotangent, I just flip tangent. So I have the square root of 65 over 4. Numbers 2 and 3 want me to find the value of x for the triangle. So on this one, I have my adjacent side and my hypotenuse. So this is going to be cosine. So 10 over x. I want to isolate my variable. I'm going to multiply both sides by x, which cancels out on the right and gives me x cosine 45 on the left. Then I want to go ahead and divide both sides by cosine 45. Look at x equals 10 over cosine 45. Then I want to type this into my calculator. Before I do that, I want to make sure my calculator is in degrees. If I am on a newer calculator, it will tell me up in the top. If I'm on an older calculator, I just have to do this manually. So I go into mode, and then the third or fourth choice, depending on how new your calculator is going to say radians or degrees. If it's not flashing degree, you press enter, and then second mode to go back home. When I type this in, I have 10 divided by cosine 45. Remember, your trig functions are buttons right here. So this gives me 14.14. Same thing for number 3. I have my opposite and adjacent, so this is going to be tangent. X over 15. So I just want to isolate my x. I'm going to multiply both sides by 15. That gets me 15 tangent 30 equals x. Then I want to type this into the calculator. This gets me 8.66. Next one wants me to find positive angles and negative angles that are coterminal. That means add and subtract 360. So to find my positive one, I'm just going to add 360, which gets me 410. To get my negative one, I subtract the 360, which gives me negative 310. On number 5, since it's in radians, I can add 2 pi, which I'm just going to add the number, or the coefficients, and turn it back into, a fraction. So this gives me 13 pi fourths. And then I can do the same thing if I subtract 2 pi. So I can do 5/4 minus 2. Turn that back into a fraction. $800. I'm going to start off by subtracting 260 because I can see it's larger than that. That is going to give me 440. And then I'm going to keep subtracting 360 because I need to make this negative. That gives me 80. So that's not a negative angle. I want to subtract 360 from 80, which gives me negative 280. These ones want me to convert to radians or radians converting to degrees. If I have a pi on top, that means when I do my conversion factor, I want pi on the bottom and 180 on the top. So my pi's cancel out, and really I'm doing 7/8 times 180, which gets me 157.5. This one is in degrees now, so I want to make sure I include my degree symbol. On number 8, I'm going to multiply by pi over 180. So I can rewrite this as negative 80 over 180 pi. Turn it back into a fraction, gives me negative 4/9 pi, which is now in radians. 64, I have degrees, so I want degrees on the bottom. I can rewrite this as 64 over 180 times pi. Turning into a fraction, gets me 16/45 pi, and then I want to write that this is radians. On numbers 10 and 11, I want to rewrite these as trig functions of theta. Remember, sine of theta equals y over r, cosine of theta equals x over r, tangent of theta equals y over x, and then my reciprocal functions work the same way. So, first thing I want to do is I want to find my hypotenuse. I know that this is -2, -6, so I'm going to use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So 4 plus 36 equals c squared, 40 equals c squared. Take the square root. This one I can factor tree into 4 and 10, which is 2 and 2, 2 and 5. I can pull out a 2, so this is 2 radical 10 for my hypotenuse. So then sine is going to be my y value over my hypotenuse, which is -6 over 2 square root of 10. I can simplify right now, or I can wait until I've rationalized my denominator. I'm going to rationalize my denominator first. So I have square root of 10 over square root of 10. Then I have -6 square root of 10 over 20. Both of these are even, so I have -3 square root of 10 over 10. I'm going to do cosine next. That is going to be -2 over 2 square root of 10. I'm going to rationalize my denominator first. Which is going to give me -2 square root of 10 over 20. Rationalizes to negative square root of 10 over 10. Then tangent is y over x, so -6 over -2, which is +3. Now I can go find my reciprocal functions. Cosecant is the opposite of sine, so the opposite of -6 over 2 square root of 10, which simplifies to negative square root of 10 over 3. And then secant is the opposite of cosine, so I'm going to flip the original one. That is 2 square root of 10 over -2, which simplifies to negative square root of 10. And then cotangent is the opposite of tangent, so, or the reciprocal of tangent, so 1/3. Same idea for number 11. So x, y, my sine of theta here is 0. My cosine of theta here is -1. My tangent of theta is y over x, which is 0. Then I want my reciprocal, so my cosecant is 1 over 0, which is undefined. Then my secant of theta is the reciprocal, so 1 over -1, or just -1. And then my secant of cotangent is -1 over 0 equals undefined. So when I'm working with a quadrantal angle, I want to make sure I have 2 zeros and 2 undefineds for my answers. Otherwise, I have done this incorrectly. Moving on to the back, this one wants me to solve the triangle. So it first wants me to find angle E. This one, remember, there are 180 degrees in a triangle. I subtract 55, and I subtract the 90, because those two angles are given to me. So I'm going to use my calculator, because every time I do this in my head, I make a mistake. This gets me 35. Then to find E, I know my angle, and I have my opposite, and I'm looking for my adjacent. So this is going to be tangent of 18 over A. I can rewrite this as A tangent 55 equals 18, or I can keep simplifying. Oops, I wanted A alone, not tangent. Equals 18 over tangent 55. Again, make sure your calculator's in degrees if you haven't already, but it should be from that earlier problem. So this gets me 12.60. Same thing for F. This time I'm looking for my hypotenuse. I have my opposite. So that is sine. Then I can rewrite this as h sine 55 equals 18. Divide by that sine 55. Gets me 21.97. These ones want me to find my reference angles. This one is 329. So 329 is in the third quadrant, so this one I subtract from 360, which gives me 31 degrees. 116 is going to be in the second quadrant, so I subtract from 180, which gets me 64. And then 11 pi ninths Let me double check. Okay, so this is less than 1.5, so it puts it in the third quadrant. So I'm going to take 11 pi ninths and subtract pi, because I'm trying to go to this x-axis. That is 11 ninths minus 1, which is going to be 2 ninths pi. I could do that on the calculator too. I would just type in my coefficients without the pi. Number 16 says a local high school adventure park has a zip line that begins 46 feet in the air. The angle of elevation on the cable is 35 degrees. Estimate the length of the cable. So, angle of elevation is looking up, and it starts 46 feet in the air. Estimate the length of the cable, so that is this part right here, because you write down it. That was a person I drew ziplining down. So this one I have the opposite side of my hypotenuse. That is going to be sine. So I have sine of 35 equals 46 over x. I want to isolate my variable. So I multiply both sides by x. Get x sine 35 equals 46. Divide both sides by sine 35. Type this into my calculator. It's nearest 100. Okay, so that's 2 decimal places. 80 point, this one's going to round to 20, and then I want to include my units of feet. Number 17 says a 24-foot ladder is placed against a building. So, like that. The angle of depression, so looking down, it's 62. What is the distance of the bottom of the ladder to the base of the building? So, I'm looking for the horizontal amount right here. I have 24 is this number right here, the hypotenuse. So I have my hypotenuse and my adjacent. This is cosine. So on this one, I just need to multiply both sides by 24. That gets me, it wants nearest 10th, 11.3 feet. Okay, number 18 says the Lakeside Resort has ownership responsibility for the lake from the edge of their shoreline to the center of the roughly circular lake. The distance from the center of the lake is 189 meters, and the central angle representing the resort is 31. So they have a circle lake, and they have 31 degrees. Distance from the center of the shore is 189. That is my radius. Okay, there we go. First one wants me the length of shoreline, so that is this part right here. Should have picked the better part of the circle. So the outside edge. This is arc length. So I'm going to use my arc length formula here, which is S equals R theta. You'll be given the formula on the test if you need to remember what the letters mean. R is my angle in radians. I currently have it in degrees, so I'm going to do 31 times pi over 180, which I can rewrite as 31 over 180 times pi. I want to see if I can simplify this fraction. I don't think I can. I cannot. Okay, so then I just plug into my formula. So I have S equals 31 over 180 pi times my radius of 189. Which gives me, did it tell me where around? I'm going to go with 102.3. And this was meters. And then I want the area of the lake. So this is area of a sector. The formula for this one is A equals 1/2 R squared theta. R again is in radians. Thankfully, I found that on the problem before. So I have A equals 1/2. Not radians. R here is radius. So that is 189, and then my theta should be in radians because I'm working with my radius. So then I just want to type that into the calculator. Which gets me 9,663.5 meters squared. Remember, area is always squared.